Okay, welcome back to Hang with Mangg. My name is Mangg. Just playing a little bit of Elden Ring Reforged here. So I am doing a little recording of it. We're just gonna clear out Gatefront a bunch of times and grind up a little bit of runes. Yeah. So speaking of Elden Ring, of course, this week, been plenty of that. And that's going to continue. I don't think I counted how many videos there are total, but it was quite a few. So that's that, and we also have Pathfinder. Abomination Vaults continuing for a while. And Two Brothers playing with Archipelago. This is our life right now. We did get a release date this week for the Factorio expansion, October 21st. So hopefully I am done with any sort of October flurry of videos, so that I can take a little time off at the end of October to play the expansion. So that's going to be good. Outside of that, yeah, I don't know. I did record a solo Archipelago. It's just a handful of videos long, so I can upload that at some point. And like I said, I just started recording this, bringing back Fire Sauce Edition for those that remember that from a decade ago. But I'm trying to play through Elden Ring Reforged with fire-only spells. And outside of that, you know, we'll just have to see. On the Exploring series, I put out a video on 1976. That's not the number of the SCP, that is the title. Good old class of 76. I think people enjoyed it a little bit. And this week I worked on something quite a bit different than Class of 76. It's actually a tale. Fratricide, a Money Rom story, written by Rounderhouse. It's basically a novella, so like a short novel. set in ancient Amani-Ram and roundabouts about a couple of princes and the sort of state of the empire. It's you know, sort of Game of Thrones kind of stuff set in Amani-Ram. Sort of. I really like it so far. It's probably going to be 2 parts. And the first part is about an hour and 40 minutes long. Now, normally I don't like to do videos that long as like a whole video. But this one is mostly me just reading the story. I did have to go through and... So there, I even put a poll on Patreon. Sort of asking, like, if people would prefer if I read the entire thing verbatim and did, like, an attempt at some voice acting to try and differentiate characters during dialogue, or if I, like, did some summary. And it was kind of a pretty even split. And so what it came down to is something that I would actually like to do. Well, no. I mean, I've mentioned this before, how I'd like to maybe do some videos covering some other books. Or, not books per se, but like short stories that aren't creepypasta. Like actual, like, copyright stuff. Specifically, I was talking about Laird Barron, and I still think that is the plan for October, is to cover a couple of his stories. But rather than reading them all out like an audiobook, like I do for Lovecraft, since that would be illegal, we're going to skirt the line a little bit more. And do, like, some stuff verbatim, and I don't know exactly how much I'd be able to get away with verbatim. Or maybe just paraphrasing some stuff.
Your thoughts.
But then, yeah, like summarizing, especially dialogue.
The principles you would follow.
So, this is sort of like that. I'm reading out everything verbatim that is not dialogue. And then the sections that do have dialogue, I'm pretty much just not even summarizing, really. I'm just paraphrasing, or like just transferring the dialogue to sort of this narrative style. So often the dialogue is still coming through like as it's written. It's just being written from a third-person perspective. So I probably could have done more work to paraphrase and summarize than I did. But at the same time, I don't know. I want to read the whole story. You know, I want to get it all out there as Rounderhouse wrote it. But the only thing is I don't want to do any voice acting. So that's basically the compromise here. In an ideal world, I would actually have voice actors come in and make it like a whole production. Yes. If I were a better channel, that is probably what would happen. And I wouldn't be surprised if some other channel does that at some point. But this will have to do for now. So part 1 dropping tomorrow, part 2 next week, and then that should be it for that. I mean, it's a great... He's really an excellent author, you know? Like, if he wasn't doing SCP, I think he very well could be published quite easily. So it's a good one. It's a good one. If your interest in SCP is anything beyond the most basic creepy monster copy pasta kind of stuff, I recommend reading it or giving it a listen. Yeah, that's that. Over on my family's 13th age game, we started a fresh campaign yesterday. It was interesting. So on my end for the prep, you know, I had said that I wanted kind of an interesting start to the campaign. I didn't want just, we start in a tavern, we're going after some goblins. It's hard to do anything that's not a little bit tropey or cliche at this point. But especially for a group of, you know, relatively new players, anything other than that is probably going to come off as just pretty fresh and exciting. So I set it on a boat. A stormy night on a boat. And I had them all... Okay, so... No, okay. I'm going to cover my prep first before we get into the session. Yeah, so I was like, okay, it's going to be on a boat. Stormy night. And they're all sleeping in the lower decks when they suddenly hear cries of all hands on deck. So they rush up, and they're greeted by a bunch of scaly green creatures attacking the sailors. Sahagin is what they are. Fuck. So a big brawl with the Sahagin in the middle of the stormy seas. And I think probably I should have made it a little bit more involved than just a big brawl. Like, there should have been some other skill challenge sort of aspect to it. Like, they had to, like, secure the sails or, you know, or have, like, waves occur or something every once in a while. To kind of keep things fresh. Or, you know, risk people going overboard. I mean, basically, we ran it as just a fight, you know. But... yeah. The one thing that I did do that I thought would be a little interesting was I wanted to have... you know, I had a bunch of just regular Sahagin raiders, you know, just basic bitch little enemies with spears. Because it's the first battle of a new campaign, new characters, you know, they like to just get the hang of their abilities. But I decided to have one enemy that was a bit special, and I didn't like any of the options available in the bestiary for Sahagin, which there aren't many. So I was like, okay, I was thinking of...
Your thoughts.
I was thinking of the song Lord of the Storm by 3 Inches of Blood. And this sort of started to tie into my overall campaign idea of what I was thinking of. Initially, you know, like I said, I wanted to do maybe something with, like, cosmic aliens, some sort of unknowable aliens from some unknown dimension invading this realm. But I wasn't quite sure how to get that started or how to get that moving. And I wasn't quite sure how to integrate that with this boat sort of idea with the Sahagin and stuff. Because I had already thought about the Sahagin and them, like, capturing some of the sailors to do, like, this dark ritual. And so I ended up thinking of Final Fantasy XIV. Which I think, I'm pretty sure they're called the Sahagin in that game, in A Realm Reborn. So I was like, okay, I mean, none of these people have really played Final Fantasy XIV. None of them have watched any video. You know, they know nothing about it. So I could just do that. I could basically just adopt the sort of overall plot somewhat of A Realm Reborn, of the beast tribes summoning their primals, and just kind of adapt it to my setting. So the Sahagin are going to try and capture people alive for this ritual to summon an avatar, basically, of their deity. And that would be pretty bad. Yeah. And again, I mean, with this group, we can be kind of tropey and cliche, and we don't have to be excruciatingly original or anything like that. Or really, like, do some, like, gray morality kind of stuff, you know? I mean, these people are perfectly happy with a straightforward villain and stuff. So I was thinking of, they're going to do this ritual, and the group obviously is going to disrupt the ritual. That's the plan. And at the ritual site, they're going to find this pile of, like, magical glowing orbs that are, like, pulsing with energy while there's rituals going on. They're clearly connected. And, you know, if there's any magic users in the group, they would, potentially they would try and identify what these magical orbs are or something like that, or if they could use them. And the answer would be, you know, they have never seen these things. They have no idea what these are. They have no idea how to utilize any sort of energy that's within them. So it's kind of remarkable that the Sahagin have either created these or somehow found these and tapped into them for this ritual. And one way or another, this information would get back to the Ministry of Magic, who would basically say the same thing and find it probably a lot more worrying than the group does. Because there's been other rumors of, like, various tribes of creatures doing similar rituals, or preparing for similar rituals, at least. And so they would have to go and investigate, like, the kobolds and the gnolls and, you know, all sorts of classic D&D creature groups to either disrupt the rituals or possibly eventually get there too late and actually have to fight off, like, these primals, you know, these avatars of their deities, which obviously are not at the full strength of an actual deity, but still pretty powerful. And then I was like, okay, so where did these magical orbs come from? And I figured, you know, again, we can be pretty tropey, cliche with it, and just say an evil wizard did it, you know? Again, like, I'm borrowing the idea of the crystals and stuff from Final Fantasy. And I'm sort of borrowing the idea of the Asians. But I figured, you know, just one evil wizard. And I probably would eventually come up with some better reasoning for why he's instigating this. Rather than just he's evil and he wants to take over the world or something. But yeah, that would be the basic idea, is that he has created these magical orbs, which are useful only to bring about the summoning of a deity. Because part of it is that in my setting, you know, magic is magic. It's like this innate energy that's available to certain individuals. And then there's like the more faith-based stuff
Shall I
that
tell
like
it?
clerics and paladins tap into.
Your thoughts.
And that's available to practically anyone if their faith is strong enough. But really, it's sort of like the two are quite similar in the way that they function, but never the two shall meet. You know, they don't really mix. So there's no scrolls that can replicate like a heal spell, you know? And somebody without magical ability in their blood, no matter how strong their faith is, they would never be able to manifest a fireball, you know, or a wall of earth or something, as far as just magic is concerned. So what this guy is doing is somewhat unique then, and that's why it's kind of mystifying. It's going to mystify the Ministry of Magic, because he's created clearly a magical component. Like they contain magical energy. It's verifiable, but they're only really activated through faith and the belief in these, you know, creatures have that they will summon their deity. Like these creatures are not innately magical, but because of their faith, they can activate the magical energy. So it's, you know, this sort of hitherto unknown hybrid. That I doubt we'll ever get into, and I doubt my players give two shits about. But there you go. So anyways, the plan was that they would do the fight on the upper deck, top side of the ship. Oh yes, right, I got interrupted. So, I wanted something unique for the Sahagin, like some different enemy. And so, I was thinking of the song Lord of the Storm, and how they're doing this. They're trying to capture sailors, individuals, to sacrifice for the Lord of the Storm, sort of, the Lord of the Sahagin, their deity. And so I thought it would be cool to have like a battle singer for the Sahagin that like buffs them all as long as it's singing. And of course, it would come out during this initial battle, and it would come out singing Lord of the Storm by 3 Inches of Blood, which I knew, being the song that it is, that type of music, I knew it would piss off most of the players in my group. Basically, everybody but Lego disliked it. And I'm like, yeah, you know, this creature is like singing this, and it's gonna keep going, you know, until you stop it. And I made it pretty clear that it's like this creature is buffing the others. I think I even specifically said that as long as it's singing, all the other Sahagin get to add the escalation die to their attacks, which is a pretty potent buff. But that combined with sort of the music that they didn't like, I figured they'd really focus fire this thing. We ended up doing 2 battles, and both battles featured one of these singers. And I ended up playing like half of 3 Inches of Blood's discography throughout the night. Because they just, I mean, they're such a slow group of players to like take their turns and stuff. So combat already takes a long time. And then they really just did not focus fire these things whatsoever. Because, like, most of the group is melee. And they just got caught in the weeds fighting the Sahagin on the, you know, without being able to get to the singer in the back. Because they never would disengage. You know, there's a savage in the group that has an ability to literally just pop free from all enemies he's engaged with and leap wherever he wants, like nearby. And so I thought for sure that he would just, like, hit one of the Sahagin, get a frenzy die, and then immediately use it to just leap to the back row to destroy the singer. Never happened. So they got to hear a lot of 3 Inches of Blood last night. It was a cool effect when I planned it, when I wrote it down. In practice, though, they did not handle it too well. And I think it was just more grating to them than anything. So, best laid plans. So, partway through the battle then, the plan was that a giant tentacle would rise out of the depths and would smash into the boat and destroy the whole thing. And they'd all go flying into the water and black out. Classic sort of plot railroading stuff. So that's what happened. And they all woke up, of course, very cliche, on a tropical beach with the birds chirping. But the ship's debris was all around them. There was corpses around them. And they saw a pudgy little dwarf nearby picking some pockets, which didn't endear him to them. But this was, of course, Gulk, an old standby of our campaigns. So Gulk made it pretty clear that he was not a fighter of any kind. But he informed them that a bunch of those creatures came by earlier while he was pretending to be dead and took some of the survivors. You know, why exactly they didn't take the players, don't question that sort of stuff. They just took some of the survivors, some of the sailors. And, so then the plan was the players would follow after the tracks into the jungle. They would get ambushed in the jungle by another group of Sahagin. They would beat them, and then they would move on to the other side of the island, to another beach where the ritual was being conducted. And they would find a bunch of Sahagin being led by technically a Marrow, but essentially just a big Sahagin. And they would find the captive sailors tied to some rocks in the shallow water with their bellies like slit open and some sharks approaching. And like I said, there would be the glowing pile of magical orbs. And so ideally the group would rescue the sailors, stop the ritual, kill all the Sahagin, save the day, get some treasure, and make it back home. So on and so forth. And then they would make it back to Staunton, the capital city, with Gulk. And chances are, I knew that none of them would think to, like, report what happened to the Ministry of Magic. So instead, Gulk would do it for them to try and get a reward, you know, because he's like, oh, I was there, I helped, you know, I prevented the ritual. Let me tell you all about it. And And he would then be informed that there's been some other rumors, and the Ministry of Magic would like to hire the group, including Golk, of course, because he helped, to check out the kobolds, because there's been rumors of them kind of stirring. And there's been mentions of some weird magical orb. And that would lead into the next adventure. So what actually happened, we sat down, and I had prepared all their characters, you know. Everybody but Legos. I had prepared all their characters based on their very loose specifications. With some of the people being like, yeah, I don't know, pick something between one of these classes. And they give me like 3 class choices. And be like, yeah, just pick one of those for me. Like, great. I'm glad you have so little regard for what kind of character you want to play. So I had made all their classes, and I didn't fill in any of their, like, you know, background or unique thing or, you know, anything like that. Because that's, you know, that's their character. Why, I'm not going to dictate anything of their character. That would be insane. That would be against any sort of concept of a role-playing game. So we sit down, they get their sheets. There's obviously a lot of confusion because they don't understand all these new abilities. And then I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna go around and introduce. You can introduce all your characters, things like that. So Ben, yeah, sorry, Lego. Lego had used a character generator online, I guess. And I guess it had just given him a unique thing, like it just generated one for him. I guess. So, I mean, he had a pretty generic one, but it was a unique thing. It was that he's the bastard daughter of the Elven Lord and a human. And so he was raised in, like, an orphanage and a church and stuff. And she became a cleric. And when I asked him if she knew if she was the bastard daughter, this question sort of surprised him because he hadn't given any thought to this. But he said no. Like, okay. It makes it a little hard for a DM. But it's not, it's workable.
Shall I to let my hand share?
You know, at a crucial moment, you sort of discover your heritage in some way. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. So, yeah, I mean, he had a character. It was fine. Lego's definitely the type that thinks way more about mechanics and how to build his character to be kind of cheesy and min-maxy as much as he can. And he makes all his decisions based on that. So, you know, he's not a very creative, imaginative individual. So then we went to my mom, and she's playing a dwarf fighter. And her unique thing is that she's the tallest dwarf in the world. Oh, God. And I said, okay, I mean, it's acceptable. I don't think it gives the DM a lot of plot ideas or anything like that, but it's serviceable. It's not a silly, unique thing. It's pretty similar, somewhat, to a suggestion in the rule book, which is I'm the oldest elf in the world, although I would argue that's a better one. Then when I asked her what her backgrounds were, she just said, "Oh, I'm the best fighter in the world." And I said, "You are definitely not the best fighter in the world. You're level 1. You need to curtail that as quickly as possible." I mean, she mentioned also that she's very scared of mice. It's like, okay, I guess it's that. I mean, it's something, but it's not a background. Because backgrounds in 13th Age are specifically sort of a handful of words that describe your character's kind of history in a way that can be mechanically applicable. And you have 8 background points to distribute amongst your backgrounds. We had gone over all of this, of course, previously in the past campaign. Most of them seem to have completely forgotten about this concept. And in fact, in the last campaign, the only one that used backgrounds at any time was my sister, because she had some very useful ones. She was a monster hunter and she grew up in the wild. So basically anything outdoors with any sort of creature, she was getting bonuses. No one else ever used any background for anything. So yeah, she really just didn't understand that. And she just kept going on about how she's a great fighter. And I'm like, what did you do for, you know, what have you done for a living in the past? She's like, well, I was in the army. I was a fighter. I killed. And it's, okay, so from age 12 onwards, you've just been in the army fighting. She's like, yeah. It's like, okay. It's just, it's not very interesting, you know? And I'm like, what, do you have any hobbies? Does your character have any hobbies? And that's when she said, oh, he's got a family. He raises kids. That's his hobby. He's raising his kids. Like, god damn, what a depressing, uninteresting adventure we have here. So anyways, we moved on then to my Anne, who's playing a goblin druid. And her unique thing was that she can turn invisible, which I had made repeatedly clear the last week. Many times that your unique thing cannot be some sort of mechanical ability or benefit. Nothing that would count as a power or a spell or a skill or anything like that. So she says, turn myself invisible. And I said no. Then she said, okay, I have another one. I can read minds. And I said no. This is the sort of group I'm playing with. Um, she settled on. She got upset at that point that I wasn't allowing this thing,
Let my hand
even
shed
though I had repeatedly said to not have that. So she said, fine, I'm the greatest rat catcher in the world. Okay. Actually, no, she said initially, her first thing she said was, I'm the greatest rat catcher in the country. And I said, so there are better rat catchers than you out there? You're not quite the best in the world? She said, fine, I'm the best in the world. Like, she was upset that now, instead of just being the best in the country, she had to be the best in the world. Okay, we moved on from that. Then we went to my sister, who went into a lengthy backstory about her character. Most of it cribbed from Hamlet. And of course, I know she's never read Hamlet, but she's seen a lot of movies. And there's been plenty of movies inspired or based on Hamlet. Like The Northman. So basically, she was a prince, and her evil uncle killed her father and took over the castle, or the throne or something. I think she was not a prince. She was like a lord or something. A lord's son. I don't know. It was Hamlet. Okay, it was Hamlet. But then she also mixed in Gladiator. Because then she was forced on a slave ship into the Gladiator arena. But now she's earned her freedom. Not quite. I mean, she went on for a while, so I'm not quite sure if she ended up killing her uncle, and I assume she did not kill her uncle and get back the castle, because otherwise, why would she be an adventurer? But she's actually leaving now the continent that her uncle's castle's on. So I don't know. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that's all fine, but what's your one unique thing? She apparently had not been listening the previous 3 times, because she had no idea what a one unique thing was. I mean, at this point, I'm getting, like, an extreme headache, by the way. So, I don't even remember where that conversation went at that point, other than she just really had no idea. So then we went to the next person. My brother-in-law, who's playing a Minotaur Sword Mage. Or, as he repeatedly pronounced, Minotaur. And I corrected him to say Minotaur every time, but he didn't seem to want to learn that. So he had apparently just Googled Minotaur and saw the classic image of the mythological Minotaur, which was, you know, like a human with a bull's head. And so he interpreted it as being half human, half bull. Which is not what it is in fantasy role-playing games. I mean, maybe there's one out there or something that has it that way. But typically, no RPG connects Minotaurs to humanity in any way. They are their own species. So he had apparently prepped a backstory based around the fact that he was half human, and he was bullied at a young age because he was half human, half bull, and he envisioned himself in this way. So when I stopped him and told him what Minotaurs were, you know, in D&D and 13th Age and stuff. He wasn't really sure what to make of that, but he went through with his backstory anyways. So he was bullied at a young age due to his appearance. And in order to make people like him, he became a master of the sword. Which is really some anime cringe shit to say. When I also asked him his one unique thing, he also had no clue what that was. So I think we moved on. And I think still I don't know what my sister and brother-in-law's one unique things are. I don't know if they ever came up with one. Then, finally, we went to my nephew. Also, curiously, playing a Minotaur, who he also pronounces Minotaur. Shocking to have two people get it wrong. But he's playing a Minotaur Savage. And his backstory is that... Actually, I don't even know if he told the backstory initially. Oh, yes. Yes, he did. His backstory was that he likes to drink a lot. And so one night he got really drunk and murdered half his tribe. And so his father, who was a very kindly man, which is insane, agreed to just exile him instead of executing him. And in order to cover it up, he had some other Minotaur executed in his stead to take the blame for it all. Let me tell you, that is not a kindly man. That is a psychopath. That is a family of two psychopaths. And I think in traditional parlance, we would call them evil. If you do an evil act, I mean, we don't play with alignment, but if you do an evil act, and not only do you not atone for it, you let someone else get executed for the act in your stead, you are evil. Bottom line. And I think it's worrying when a player doesn't even understand that. It's not great. And then, his one unique thing is that he can drink beer through his nostrils. This is the sort of group that I'm playing with. Yeah. So then I was like, okay, you're all on a ship. You're on your way to the capital city of Staunton. You're leaving Kuros, the port city of Guthwald on Kuros. I need all of you to give me a reason as to why you are traveling to the capital city. So my mom, ever being as generic as humanly possible, said that she's traveling for money. She needs money, so she's gonna go fight for money. Awesome. Lego said that he's heard about some... one of his backgrounds is an archivist. So he said that he's heard about some scrolls that are on the black market, and they belong in a museum. So he's going to go acquire them in order to get them on the museum. And I said, well, okay, well, I mean, you don't have a lot of money. What's your plan? And he's like, oh, well, you know, by any means necessary, I'm going to get these. The ends justify the means. So I asked him at that point, you know, if we were playing with alignment, what would you say your character alignment is? And he went with chaotic good, I think. After my nephew's spiel about, you know, killing half his tribe or whatever and letting someone else take the blame, I asked him what alignment his character would be. He initially went with chaotic neutral, which is, of course, a DM's worst nightmare used most of the time. Because chaotic neutral means they can do basically anything they want, and it's all somewhat within their character's purview. You know, they're just... chaotic neutral is basically, I don't really care for your fucking alignment system and don't talk to me. I'm gonna do what I want. In a lot of ways, it's the worst answer I think a DM can hear. Because if you hear, oh, I'm lawful evil, then it's either, no, get out of my group, or, okay, maybe as some sort of interesting idea. Like Regal. You know, Regal from Wrath of the Righteous is a pretty awesome lawful evil character. And if I had a good enough group and a good enough players that had some concept like that, it's like, okay. But most of the time you hear any sort of evil, it's like, all right, no, get out of here. Chaotic neutral, though, it's like, okay, I mean, technically you're not evil. I don't really have a great reason to not allow it, because I actually picked chaotic neutral a lot of the time when we were still playing D&D, just because basically I didn't agree with the alignment system. And that was my way to protest it, of just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm going to act how I act. I'm not going to be an evil fuck. But I don't adhere to any of that other shit. So, yeah. But then he was like, well, I don't know. Maybe I'm chaotic good. It's like, no, buddy, you are not chaotic good. No matter how you want to spin it. This is also the player that the other week, after we did a one-shot where they were slightly kind of evil characters, he was like, oh, maybe for the next campaign I should play an evil character. Yeah, it's just a problem player. But anyways. Yeah, so they all gave some answer, whatever, for why they were trapped. So we do the initial battle, and like I said, I mean, they got caught in the weeds with the other Sahagin, and they didn't go after the singers, so the music just kept on playing. And the Sahagin kept on getting buffed. But eventually they did kill the singer, and the tentacle came down, and they woke up on shore. And they confronted Golk, asking him why he's picking pockets and, you know, kind of questioning him. But then he told him about the tracks leading into the jungle, and and he's like, you guys got to go after him. You got to go rescue those guys. And their response was, which is what you always want to hear from a heroic group, why? Good God. That's a rough start to a campaign, man. Because it demonstrates two things. It demonstrates, one, a not very heroic group of players and characters. And also, two, a group that doesn't have much awareness for the sort of player-DM dynamic, where the DM dangles a plot hook in front of you that he expects you to take, and then you don't take it. So it took a little bit more prodding from Gold, and then eventually they were like, okay, let's go. They weren't really happy about it, though, because they knew there wasn't much reward in it. They were just saving lives. Again, keep in mind, one of the characters got drunk and slaughtered half of his own tribe and let someone else get executed for it. So, good God, I just got 5 things off one dude. Holy shit. So they head into the jungle, and I could have done a montage here, but time was running long. So we just got to the second battle, and they had the goblin sort of tracking the tracks, and I gave him a roll, and he detected that there was an ambush right in front of them. So they knew there was an ambush waiting. Like, okay, they could do all sorts of things to foil this ambush. Their plan was to have most of the group wait behind a big rock, and then have 2 of the frontliners rush around one of the other rocks. And that's how the combat started, with most of the group deep in the back line behind a rock. It's like, you're all frontliners. Why wouldn't you just all rush around the rock and bum rush those 2 guys? Whatever. So this fight went on for an eternity. There was a singer all the way on the back end of the enemy group. And this is where we just listened to 3 inches of blood for a long time. Because none of them could do anything. Their roles were not great. Their tactics were not great. Half of the group didn't understand any of their abilities, and so they didn't use any of their abilities. So it was a lot of just, okay, I'm going to make a basic attack against this guy. Awesome. Excellent stuff. So really, I need to be, and I designed the encounters based around, like, the encounter balance mechanics of 13th Age. I need to, like, cut that in half. Because they are just not very good at combat. And it would just be a lot better if it was a lot easier for everybody. Sad to say, though, because that'll make for some pretty piddly fights. And so that's kind of where the rest of the night went by. And eventually they won. And that was it. And so we didn't get to the big climax at the beach with the ritual. Because that second fight, the whole thing just took forever. Awesome. Yeah, I just don't know what to do with them. And I say that every single week, and I still don't know what to do with them. Yes, they as players would probably be a lot happier with a much simpler combat system, like Maze Rats or something, where they could just, like, have 3 abilities and roll some dice and describe how much ass they kick. But as a DM, that would just kind of bore the shit out of me, because then combat's very quick. And so most of the session is going to be spent on, like, story or dialogue or problem solving, none of which they really care for or do well. So they kind of are a group that needs lengthy combat, but they don't read anything and they don't understand any abilities. So they can't handle complicated characters or complicated combat, but they need lengthy combat. So really, they would be best fit with lengthy, simple combat, which makes me want to put a fucking gun in my mouth. So I don't know what to do. But, you know, they all seem to enjoy it, so I guess we'll keep going. And all I have is just I can flesh out the plot, which they will never engage with or enjoy. So that's how my RPG days are going. You know how they say, like, any pizza is better than no pizza? Any RPG is not better than no RPG. And I've learned that lesson before. But I just keep throwing myself into it. And I think I'm just too nice to, like, say, yeah, we should probably put a stop to this. Because they're all still kind of enjoying it, so... I don't know. Anyways, I talked for a while about that. Most of this hanging with Mangg is just about that now. But anyways, more Elden Ring Shadow of the Erd Tree, more Pathfinder, some more Archipelago with Two Brothers Play, and on the Exploring series, Fratricide and a Money Rom Story Part 1. For now, though, my name is Mangg. This has been Hanging with Mangg, and I will see you fine folks next week.